kind of waiting for, like, is there going to be a Yankee shakeup, right? Is there going to be something that they're going to do? We're talking about the trade deadline. We're talking about when Severino coming back. Zach Britton, is going to be pitching in Somerset tonight. What's going to happen with this Yankee team that's going to shake them out of whatever this is? And the pitching has been great. The bullpen's been even better. Like, that's not the problem. But sort of what's going to be the infusion here that really puts the Yankees on its course? I don't know if that's coming. But I'll tell you what, Moose, watching that game last night, I really didn't have a problem with Gio Urshela playing short. And I know that I don't want to be like, trigger reaction because Gleyber's had a couple bad defensive plays in the last couple days. Before that, he had been very good at short. But if you are looking for maybe the shakeup, I don't know if now is maybe the worst time to do it. Voigt's down. You can have Andujar and DJ playing first and third, depending on where you need them for defensive purposes. Urshela playing short, and maybe Gleyber does go to second for a little bit. Maybe that, I don't know if it's going to do anything. I don't know if that's what the Yankees are looking for. I don't even know if that's necessarily the Yankees' biggest problem. But I could see that being the thing, because last night watching Urshela wasn't so bad at short.
No, what happened to giving Gleyber more time?
Well, Moose,
even on the Maggie clock, he's run out of time. even on the Maggie, Gray, Gleyber, Torres defense and shortstop, he's run out of time.
Moose, you're in a dogfight for the division right now. And
I understand. I get it. I understand. I don't know. I mean, they could. I'm not saying it's out of the realm. He looked good. I'm not sure if the Yankees are comfortable with Urshela being there full time at shortstop, something I mentioned yesterday. Maybe they get a little bit more comfortable with it. Maybe that becomes an opportunity where they move Gleyber. I do think, though, here's the issue the Yankees have. Once you make that move, that's the move. Like, I don't think you can go and move Gleyber from short to second, then back to short when Luke Voigt gets healthy. Like, I don't know if the Yankees are having the mindset of doing that with Gleyber Torres. Like, I think they wanted to test him out this year. Clearly last year he was not good defensively at the position. They blamed him being out of shape. We've seen some good things from Gleyber, and we've seen some really bad things at shortstop defensively from Gleyber Torres. I guess I would be more comfortable if I'm going to make that move. It's going to be a move that I'm going to make where Gleyber Torres is my second baseman moving forward. I would not go shuffling it around and then expect something different here from Gleyber Torres, because what are you going to do then defensively for Gleyber, when you get later on in the line, when Luke Voigt does come back and he is healthy? Then what do you do with Gleyber Torres? Because you're going to have Voigt at first base. You're going to have, obviously, Gio Urshela. Yeah, you have DJ LeMahieu at third base, and you'd have Gleyber Torres at second base. So that's going to be your defensive alignment here moving forward. I don't know if the Yankees are necessarily all that comfortable with Gio at short. If you do that, I think you're moving Gleyber for good.
Yeah, see, I think it could be a little more fluid. Like, I think the Yankees have shown you, with the multiple lineups they've had, with all the different guys they've had to put in different spots. Listen, Andujar's playing left field. He's taking grounders at first at times. Gary's taking grounders at first at times. You've got Frazier's got to play all over the outfield. I think they see this as a little bit more like you've got to be flexible. We know that the Yankees are all very similar. Most of them are very similar in terms of hitters. And they could maybe use a little bit more variety in sort of how they approach that. We've talked about that a lot in Brian Cashman's construction of the team. But in terms of like defensively, I do think there is a little bit more versatility there than maybe we ever thought. The Yankees have been forced to lean into that. So it's just something that I was thinking about watching the game last night, because, we know that the Yankees are kind of looking for something. And I don't know if necessarily that's it, but it does seem like they're sort of searching for something. And, then you get to the Gary. I mean, listen, so Dove, we have the clip from Boone last night post-game talking about the Gary base running error. Listen, first I'll give Gary credit. The throwdown to get, Meadows at first, gunned him out. That's the second time he's done that in the last couple days. Fantastic. Like, great defensive play. Nice job. Okay, that aside. Now the Gary base running gaff. I thought this was really, I love how Boone defends his players. I really do. But at some point, it does go a little bit like beyond just sort of the belief. You have to suspend belief a little bit. So here's Boone last night when he was asked about Gary and his his base running error.
It's that fine line of, not wanting him to be too restricted out there and start, lacking aggression or, fearing of running into a mistake, but just making sure he's really educated on, where they're playing him, what balls he can advance on, things like that. So it's just something we got to continue to reinforce and drive home.
I mean, really, at this point in his career, Are we really doing that? He's got to have a better awareness of what's going on. I mean, Moose, I know that Yankee fans, I think a lot are just sort of counting down the days until Gary Sanchez isn't here. And listen, hitting, he's actually, if you look inside the numbers, has not been that bad lately. But, I mean, come on. We're still doing that. I mean, we're still making excuses that he's got to, have a better understanding. That should be a given at this point, shouldn't it?
Yeah, but what do you want him to say after the game? I don't disagree with you.
He's got to have a
better baseball IQ. Yeah,
inexcusable. That's all that Boone has to say. Inexcusable at this point in Gary's career and at this point in the season when he's already had a lot of bad base running errors. Inexcusable to keep making the same mistakes. That's what I would say.
So do you expect that from Aaron Boone?
I'm just saying that I like how Boone does defend his players. I'm acknowledging that Aaron Boone is that kind of a manager, and I think that's a wise thing to do for him. But I think at some points that's not like calling Gary to the mat. It's saying it's inexcusable, which it is. That's what saying what everyone knows.
Well,
to be the
I get it, but why do I guess it's not surprising that Boone does it. And that Boone is supporting his players. Gary understands. I mean, he walked off the field. He was utterly embarrassed by the fact that he took off for third base. I mean, Gary knows he messed up. I mean, Gary was going over there after, Clint Frazier makes the catches, thanking him. I mean, he understands and he gets it. I don't know if I necessarily need the manager because that would be completely anti-Aaron Boone, what he does as a manager. So I'd be more alarmed if Aaron Boone came out and ripped Gary Sanchez a new one last night about where this team is, about where that clubhouse is, as compared to what you got from Aaron Boone after the game. Whether you like it or not, Aaron Boone maintained and remained true to himself. That's who he is as a manager. So he doesn't need to reprimand Gary Sanchez publicly to be able to reprimand Gary Sanchez privately. You saw that already with Gleyber Torres.
No, it's not about going to the extreme of like ripping him in a press conference. It's about that just is accountability. Like that's making an excuse for Gary. And I thought he did say it was a mistake. Boone said it was definitely a base running mistake because how could you call it anything else? But I feel like it's almost excusing the behavior there as opposed to saying, too late in his career and too late into the season and too late to be making the same kind of mistakes over and over again. That's just called accountability. And so,
but when you look at Gary Sanchez's body language after he makes that mental mistake and he goes for third, don't you know he made a mistake? He knows he made a mistake. He knows it. He knows it. So, he now you want to say, well, the Yankees on the base paths are a sloppy baseball team. You want to look at, the bigger picture on the macro level is that the Yankees love running themselves into outs. So they have cost themselves runs. They have been sloppy on the base paths. That's been something that has defined this Yankee team. We get into conversations about what makes up this Yankee team. Well, how many times do you watch a game and you see the Yankees being sloppy on the base paths? Not just Gary Sanchez, it's others as well. It's become an epidemic on the team to where we joke around about it, whether it be the third base coach sending guys home that have no business being sent home, whether not knowing game situations like you saw Gary Sanchez last night, where you saw Gary Sanchez over the weekend in Detroit against the Tigers. He's not the only one. There have been others this year that have made similar mistakes. I understand the point that you're making, Maggie, about you want to see. I don't look at it as excuse making for Gary Sanchez. I just look at it as Aaron Boone, being true to himself as a manager. Now, you want to say that you want to hear Aaron Boone after the game say that's unacceptable. I think when you look at Sanchez's body language after he made that mistake, I think he knows it's unacceptable. I think he lost, obviously, what was going on there. The ball was hit in front of him. That is a little league play. You never take off for third. It was such an easy throw for the shortstop, and he was dead to rights.
Right. I mean, here's the thing. You got 27 outs that have been made on the base paths by the Yankees. We talked about the amount of games that they've played where they've scored 3 runs or fewer.
Yeah.
Right?
That's how many solo home runs they've had.
Okay. So, obviously, the message may not be getting through, right? And I'm not saying that Aaron Boone, I'm not expecting him to change his approach. And honestly, this is not, I understand why Boone is the way he is, and I like the fact that he defends his players. But this is a problem that isn't really going away. So maybe that message isn't really getting received in the way that he thinks it might be getting received. And I'm not saying he needs to come out and be totally, blasting his guys at a press conference. Of course he's not going to do that, and honestly, nor should he. Like that would be so antithetical to who he is, and I don't think that's what his team needs. But a little bit more accountability. Like, he did have that behind closed doors talk with Glaber, and Glaber's defense did get better for like a month. Maybe there's something that needs to happen here with Sanchez. I know a million people have tried to get in, through to him or whatever, but maybe there is something there because, quite frankly, like, message not getting received because they keep making the same mistakes over and over again.
I get it. Well, that's where you hold the manager accountable.
I am.
But I don't think that message needs to be delivered to the media. That's the point. I don't think that message, in order to get through to Gary and others about their sloppiness on the base pass, I don't think Aaron Boone needs to deliver that through the media on a Zoom call after a game. I think that has to be something that's dealt with in the clubhouse, and I think Aaron Boone would probably rather have it be dealt with in the clubhouse. I think that's really kind of what's indicative or what defines him as a manager. He likes to keep a lot of things in-house, and we see that. So it's not really, it goes against what his personality is and what he believes in as a manager. Listen, Gary Sanchez made a boneheaded play. Mm-hmm. So there's no other way to cut it. He just did. You want to emphasize the positives about his defense improving. Flash talked about that on the S Network last night. His defense has improved, but you cannot have that double, have a ball hit right in front of you and take off for third base. That is an inexcusable mistake. And so that's where you come back to what we began the conversation with kicking off this Wednesday program is this. Even though the Yankees win, you don't necessarily feel all that great about this Yankees. They needed to win a game. Listen to Aaron Boone after the game. It was a big win because they were desperate to win a game. They needed to snap that losing streak, 2-6 in their last 8 games, but it's not one of those games where it was kind of, let's get right. There are things in that game that you still don't like about this team where they had opportunities. As you mentioned it, Glasnow let them back into the game. Finally, they were able to break through with the Frazier home run in the 11th inning to win the game 5-3. But up until that point in time, it looked like two teams that were staggering to the finish line to see exactly who was going to win the baseball game. Yankees needed to win a game, but if you have concerns about this Yankee team, you have the same concerns on this Wednesday that you did yesterday.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then, you don't want to turn the page too quickly, but just the way the baseball goes with Jordan Montgomery on the mound tonight. Listen, we've talked about the pitching staff and how great they've been. And it's been the positive of this team, and especially the bullpen doing it without Darren O'Day, doing it without Zach Britton. They have been really, really strong. And yesterday, what they're getting out of guys like Lucas Licky is just incredible. I was listening to John and Susan over the weekend. They had such a good line. They're like, it's not a Yankee game unless Lucas Licky or Peralta are warming up in the bullpen. It's like, they were so spot on about that, and they've just been excellent, and you just now are waiting, I think, on pins and needles, really, about what you're going to get from the second opinion with Corey Kluber today. We should know more about that. He's getting the second opinion on the shoulder. If it's good news, great. He's back in 2 months. If it's good news, he's back in 2 months. If it's other news beyond good news, well, then the rest of the rotation is going to have to step up a little bit, and it's guys like Jordan Montgomery who you're going to be expecting more from.